Welcome to episode number 2 of Settling's Not an Option. I'm your host today, Amanda Stanhope, and I'm here with my co-host, Adam Nebbs. And this show is for anyone out there who feels like they've settled for an unfulfilling life. Whether you've settled in a relationship, in the work that you do, or in the way that you treat yourself, we're here to tell you that settling's not an option. So who are we to tell you this? Well, we're just two people who found ourselves settling and decided that it wasn't an option for us. So we want to let you know that you're not alone. And we want to offer you some support and encouragement as you face the many obstacles that you're bound to face when you decide that settling is not an option. We'll share our stories with you, and we'll have some interesting guests on along the way who will share their experiences as well. So again, welcome, and we hope that you gain a few tips that you can take on your journey with you. Today, I have the pleasure of getting to interview my co-host, Adam Nebbs, and get to know him a little bit better right along with you guys because we're just starting to know each other. We just met on LinkedIn a few months ago, and it's kind of a funny story because when I looked back at our feed of our messages, there was probably like a 1 month gap between messages when all of a sudden Adam just threw out this idea of doing a podcast, and I just thought it was so awesome that he would just throw that out to someone who's pretty much a complete stranger. And so I had to take him up on the opportunity. So here we are, we're putting this podcast together and we're going to see where it goes. So now it's time to turn it over to Adam and start asking him some questions. So Adam, I know that you have recently made the decision to not settle and made some major changes in your life. So can you kind of walk us through where you're at right now and a little bit about how you got there?
Yeah, definitely. So in anticipation for the podcast, I was like, I need to reflect a little bit on where I've been.
Yep.
Because probably most recently, and this is what led me and Amanda to connecting, was I decided not to settle in my professional life. But what I hadn't realized is that before then, I had not settled in the relationship that I was in. But there's quite a big difference I kind of want to unpack is in the first instance, I don't think it was my decision not to settle.
Okay.
I think it was the universe. I think I was very much walking a path that wasn't the right path for me. And
Sure.
I very much believe that if you do that, the universe will realign you to where you need to go. So I was in a relationship for 10 years. When I went to university, I very much decided that I just needed to get in a relationship because I needed somebody to validate who I was. Certainly at the age of 18, I was not comfortable with myself.
Okay.
I very much sought other people's opinions of me, I suppose, to feel comfortable in myself. And that basically led to a 10-year relationship, which I think for both parties was quite destructive, unfortunately. It was very much a relationship that dictated my tastes and things. I was constantly looking to my other half to not only validate me, but kind of determine who I was.
Okay.
And as I imagine a lot of people out there are kind of feeling, that's definitely not a good way to have a relationship. So ultimately it ended. And when that relationship ended, I almost felt like I went back to that 18-year-old and I needed to restart that journey. It very much felt like my whole identity was shattered and I just didn't know what to do. So I went back to what I'd done 10 years before and thought I'm going to try and find another relationship. And that didn't work out. I basically walked the path, but I was happier that it was not another 10 years. It was a lot shorter than that I realized, hold on, I've got a second chance here to find myself, to have a really good relationship with myself. So rather than just going out and finding a relationship and settling again, I need to go on that journey as hard as it will be. And I think that's been one of the most eye-opening, amazing journeys that I've ever gone on. And I think one of the big lessons that I've learned, and this is only something I've learned recently, and I spoke to Amanda about last week, is this concept of yin and yang. I think in society really puts this idea out there that you must find somebody to complete you, that you are incomplete how you are, and you will find the perfect person and everything will be happy. And it's just so not true. You really
Right.
need to be, I think, the yin to your own yang. And hopefully you then meet somebody who has found that same experience in themselves and they're complete in themselves. And then you guys share that journey together.
Right.
And it's early days. I've been with my current partner for a couple of years now, but we have very much kind of walked this new path together and we're constantly talking about it. And I've never felt more comfortable in a relationship, probably because I'm more comfortable in myself. And I know that, you know, I'm not looking to somebody else to validate me and complete me. So that's probably one part of the story, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. That's a huge part of it, really.
It was. And in a professional capacity, and this is something that I realized in myself, I started to do a lot of work on, I suppose, personal development. I started listening to a lot of self-help books, meditating, walking, eating better, just trying to get myself in a much better headspace. And it started to work. I started to feel like I was definitely getting closer to a much better me.
So this was after the separation?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I constantly found myself at an impasse because of my work. So at the time I was a branch manager at one of the big four banks here in Australia. And that took a real toll on me. I was really anxious all the time. I was really overworked. I was the quintessential bank employee that after hours would sit on the couch with his laptop and do all this additional work that was unpaid. But I did it because, you know, I wanted to be the best branch manager in the land, which I think anyone who works in banking will appreciate. That's how you kind of get conditioned to be.
Sure.
And it just wasn't good for my mental health. And what's more is my manager and my workplace culture was not supportive. There was a lot of compromises that I had to make in that workplace, which really took a toll on me. And one day I just decided, well, no, I don't want to do this. I don't have to do this. And it was like the veil had been kind of lifted, I guess. Is up until that point I thought, no, I can't possibly leave. You know, I'm earning all this money. I'm a branch manager. Like, people would kill to have this job. And, you know, I also wondered, you know, what's my friends and family going to think about this if I just leave? And so I kind of battled with this decision for a while. I consulted a lot, as I like to do, and kept reflecting on it. And a couple of months after I initially had that thought, I decided it's time to leave.
Okay.
And it was terrifying. And the timing was crazy because it was basically 2 weeks after I'd left my job that COVID-19 started to really ramp up and the job market completely disappeared.
Right.
But it has led me on a journey that has been amazing. I don't think I've ever been so happy in my life. And I'm earning far less than I ever have. And I've got a lot less prestige, I guess I'll say, than I ever had, you know, when I was in banking in my various guises. But that's pretty much my story.
Sorry, not to interrupt your thought too much, but just interesting that you would say that you have so much less prestige, yet you feel happier. And I think that's kind of contradictory to what a lot of people think or aspire to. Or would you agree with that? That a lot of people think that you have to get that prestige in order to be happy.
Definitely. I think it's really hard to untrain your brain to not think that way, which is why it was so hard for me to actually leave my workplace.
Right.
I think also your ego certainly plays a very big part in it. It feels good to be, wanted, I suppose. As a branch manager, I certainly enjoyed when customers would come and say, I want to speak to the branch manager.
Oh,
I'd
sure.
have people constantly, coming into my branch. It was something that I own, like a piece of real estate. I was responsible for a lot of mortgage customers. So, for me, I felt like, look at all of this responsibility I've been given,
Right.
and look at this title. And even when I actually got the job as a branch manager, like my dad was just so proud, and he said, like, wow, like that's one of those traditional roles that, you trust your doctor, you trust your lawyer, and you trust your branch manager. He's
Yeah,
like,
right.
you're a branch manager. And he's like, you're only 31. He's like, well done. Like you've really excelled in your life. But then deep down, I was thinking, no, I'm not. I'm really miserable. Like, I
Yeah,
hate this. Like, but society would say, this guy's got it all. Like, well done, mate. You've finally made it. But it's just so far from what it is. So I
right.
think it is something that you need to awaken in yourself, which is why I think there's so many people that we could have that conversation with that wouldn't be able to see it. And it's no fault of their own. It's just because it's very hard to decouple that, I suppose,
Sure.
because of society's expectations.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up something that your dad would say, because I think even as adults, we're still, not everybody, because not everybody has a good relationship with their parents or whatever, but I think a lot of people are still trying to get the approval of their parents and please their parents. And I mean, I still find myself doing that too. And so it's interesting, but I think that plays a big part in people settling, because your parents have conditioned you ever since the day you were born, and of course you want to please them. So yeah, that just adds another layer that you have to kind of scrape away before you can just make that decision.
I completely agree, and I think it's it starts from a very young age. Like one of the people that I follow really closely is a fella called Mo Gaudat,
Oh yeah.
who wrote a book, Solve for Happy, and he basically, coming from an engineer's background, is like, how can I basically figure out the equation to solve for this happiness riddle that we're all struggling with? And
Yep.
he talks about, very heavily influenced by Eckhart Tolle's work, but how, this kind of need to appease others starts, and it's from a young age.
Hmm.
When you do the right thing and your parents go, oh wow, you've done this, well done. And it starts really young and it just continues to build up, I think. And
Sure.
I will definitely say my ego is like the bane of my existence, and I constantly have to watch my ego, because I think now that I'm a lot more aware of it, it's a lot easier to not make decisions through my ego. But
Sure.
even then, I think you just need to be mindful that your ego can creep into decision making without you knowing.
Hmm.
And working in banking, I think my journey went on as long as it was. Again, it was another 10 years there. I just seemed to do things in 10-year blocks. So that was, yeah.
Yes. Well, you were a
Um,
banker after all, so
yeah, exactly. I like to just do it in very neat numbers.
that's
Um,
right.
but yeah, basically my journey started in banking, and just I'm just going to earn a little bit of money on the side while I'm at university trying to figure out who I am. But then
Okay.
I stayed there 10 years later. So I settled, and it was ultimately, I settled because of the money, because after finishing university and being used to just living off me goring noodles and stuff like that, when somebody says, hey, do you want like a large amount of money, you're like, yeah, of
Right.
course I do. Screw my ideals and values, just give me some money.
Well, sure.
And that continued throughout. um, and my journey went as far as it did, because the more I was at work, the better I got at what I did, and
Hmm.
people would call me out for it.
Right.
And I was thinking about something the other day. I absolutely relished our meetings, basically, that we would go to, where people would get called out for their performance.
Mm.
And at the time I was doing really, really well, and I was getting called out on a regular basis, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And even on those times where I wasn't performing very well, I'd be sitting there with a secret hope that I would still get praised.
Mm-hmm.
And when I didn't, even though I knew in my heart of hearts that I didn't deserve praise at that current moment, I'd still feel sad about it. And that was like an early grappling with ego. Like I wanted people to validate me. It all came down to, I want people to praise what I'm doing, and that gives me worth, and then that gives me identity. And it
Yeah.
isn't until you scrape all of that away, which is incredibly hard, that you actually find who you are at your core and you become happy. So yeah, I think both my previous relationship and my previous relationship in the bank
Mm-hmm.
were both absolutely essential to leading me to where I am today. But there were some big learnings to have, I think.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm wondering, because I kind of went through this too, where you justify things to yourself, because as we talked about last week, I was an accountant for over 20 years, and you justify things to yourself. I'm wondering if you did this. So like I would tell myself, because I've always wanted to help people, and I know you have a desire to help people as well. And so I would always think, well, I'm very good at accounting, and so this must be how I'm supposed to help people. And I would try to just turn it around that way and justify, even though I knew in my heart it really wasn't what I was supposed to do the rest of my life, I could justify it that way. Did you find yourself doing that with your banking clients and even your
100%.
colleagues?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's probably something that the bank wants you to do, because they have these big organizational visions and
Okay.
the
Yep.
set of values that they live by. And what I started to do was to think, well, okay, how can I help people by living through these values or this vision? And ultimately, I brainwashed myself
Sure.
to say, well, look, I'm helping the financial well-being of these customers, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm leading a team of people now that are helping the financial well-being of these customers. And I would get very good at being able to sell this to my team, to say, hey, it's not just an application for a personal loan. This is what it means to the customer. And I would sell that. And over time, because I was having to deliver that message on a regular basis to my team,
Yep.
I started to believe it. I was
Sure.
like, no, I'm 100% helping people.
Right.
Was I helping people? I don't think so. Because,
Well, I imagine that you were,
yeah,
but
maybe.
you weren't helping yourself very well along the way.
Yeah. And I think, there was a lot of indicators that the work I was doing was probably not incredibly ethical work. I
Okay.
know you guys would probably know about this in America with Wells Fargo and what happened there.
Sure.
And that kind of triggered things that happened in Australia. We had like a big royal commission into banking. We had just some huge, big kind of changes from a regulation point of view.
Okay.
And that was ultimately because of poor practices where we didn't help people. We did quite the opposite. And I was part of the team that was, ultimately doing that. As much as I was taking orders at the time, I
Right.
was complicit in things that weren't helpful for people. And I was just thinking about myself, but justifying it through this kind of organizational narrative.
Sure.
And it wasn't until I kind of stripped that all back. I just think it's just, layers and layers of just things that I had to kind of scrape through, that I
Right.
realized, no, actually, I'm not kind of that person who went to university with the intentions of helping people. I've just settled into this role for the wrong reasons. And I'm now, as you said, I'm trying to justify it to
Right.
myself, because I don't want to face up to the truth that maybe I am not walking the path that I'm into.
Yeah, exactly. No, and imagine that anybody probably watching this or listening to this has been through a similar experience, because you get brainwashed and you get indoctrinated into the culture wherever
Mm.
you're working, and it's very easy to start playing that part. But I wanted
Yeah.
to go back to, because one thing I want to ask you about, because I've seen it on LinkedIn, is, so your degree is in sociology, correct?
Yeah.
So it sounds like did you say you were working in banking while you were at university, and that's how you got into the banking world? Or how did you make that transition from sociology major to banking?
Yeah, it's quite funny. So I completed my honors in sociology, and I kind of got to the end of it, and I was like, what do I do now? Because it's quite hard. Like, I certainly know what's on the table now from a sociological point of view, but at the time I had no idea.
Right.
And I was working part-time at the bank, which I got that role through a friend, and I had no intentions of ever staying in banking because the initial role that I had was very boring, very stressful, just not one that I wanted to ever kind of continue with.
Sure.
So I started applying for jobs in the public sector, which I thought, this is a pretty, it looks like there's a bit of a crossover here. This might be kind of helpful with all the stuff I've done in sociology. And I got a couple of interviews for some public sector jobs. I told my manager at the bank, who I had a really good relationship with, hey, can I put you down as a reference?
Mm-hmm.
She said yes, but then said, look, I just want you to know I really value, your input at work. I think you do a really great job. There's actually another department that's opened up here, which is the personal loans department. It's much better money, much easier role, more flexible. Did you want me to speak to the contact center manager about you? And I said, yeah, sure. Like, at the time, I didn't realize
Right.
this was quite a sought after role in the area that I was in. And then I got a call from the contact center manager, who I just thought it was just, again, it comes back to this title thing. At the time, I just thought, okay, I don't know who this guy is, but whatever, I'll hear what he has to say. But he was, basically the 2IC of the whole center. And I was like, oh, right, okay. So afterwards, I realized, who I was speaking with. And he just said, look, I'd like to offer you the job. This is the money. These are the hours, da-da-da. And it was awesome, firstly, because I didn't have to do an interview. So
sure.
that started my ego journey. I thought, wow, look, all these people are applying for this role. They have to go through interviews.
My ego journey. I like that.
Yeah, I was like, oh, God, and at the time I thought, oh, my gosh, I'm so great. But, like, it just led me down this terrible path. And, all I could see was the money. He was like, here's the money. And I still remember that figure. And I called, like, my friends and was like, oh, my gosh, they've also offered me this much money. And I was like, they all said, take it right away. And I did.
Yeah.
And, that took me.
Well, how old were you then?
I was 21 or 22.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, I can just imagine then. Yeah, you have no clue at that age. When
No.
money is put in front of you, it's, yep.
Yeah, I was just so excited about it. And I thought, wow. And the first thing I thought when I was offered this job was, I've made it. Like,
right.
I'm young and I've already been offered this awesome role. Like, I've made it already. Look at me go. But,
yep.
It's just so far from the truth. It really, it was absolutely pivotal to who I am today, but it really just took me down a path of some painful learnings, I think.
Sure. So there was one other correlation I wanted to make there before I moved on to the next thing, and now I got to think of it a second here.
That's happened last week.
Yeah, I know, because I get so wrapped up in what you're talking about, but maybe it'll come back to it. It'll come back to me probably, but at any rate, I know what it was, because so I'm imagining, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth here, but I'm imagining that you're looking at the sociology world or whatever you would do with a sociology degree, and that's going to be probably low paying. It's probably more risk, somewhat a more risky job if you're working in the public sector. Probably it's just not as guaranteed maybe as a banking job would be. And so I just can imagine you facing that, especially at that age, and thinking you got two choices. You got this one that matches up with your values better, but it's not safe and secure, and feels like it's not going to meet those needs of yours. So it's so much, it's tempting. It's so much easier to go for the one that is going to bring you the prestige and the money and so Yeah, I guess I'm just saying that just because I could completely understand how you would have gotten to that point, and I imagine that there aren't that many people that would have made any different decision than what you did.
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, the core things at play at that decision was, you know, here's something easy on the table. You know,
Right.
I've been offered a job and I don't have to do anything. I just need to take the job and, you know, happy days, we're there. There was also some pressure on the table from my partner at the time because
Sure.
I hadn't been bringing in a lot of money,
Yep.
you know, to, hey, come on, can you step up? And yeah, the other alternative was the scary one. It was, all
For
right, you now
sure.
have to go and figure out what's next. You're not going to have an easy path carved out for you.
Right.
You're going to probably, you know, who knows? There's all these variables involved. Who knows where it's going to lead you to? But I think my advice there, which might be hard because you know it's that adage of, you know, it'd be good to put an old head on young shoulders kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, cool. I got it right. Well,
I think so. It sounds good.
Maybe it's vice versa, but it sounds good.
If it's
And
not, we're rolling with it. It is
yeah,
now.
we're rolling with it now.
You just made your own adage, so there you go.
Made my own adage. Excellent. But yeah, it's the lesson there is don't take the easy path, you know, and it's one that I've looked at now and I've been able to kind of learn from. So I'm now undertaking my PhD, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to be really difficult. I'm definitely not going to earn anywhere near as much money as I earned when I was in banking. And I'm not 100% sure where it's going to lead to because
Right.
at the end of the day, I'll then have to figure out if I'm successful in getting through my PhD, you know, what's next.
Right.
Whereas another role kind of presented itself at my current work, which is another leadership position, another good money,
Mm-hmm.
very unsatisfying work. And I still had that battle in myself when I got an interview for the role, where I was told I was shortlisted for the role, where I went, I like this. Like, you know, maybe I should take this other role.
Right.
And, you know, I knew deep down it's not for me. I've walked that path before. It's the easy path to walk down.
Yep.
And again, my wise dad, who I'm finally listening to at the age of 31, didn't listen to in my early 20s, but he said to me, he was like, why did you apply for that job? And I was like, oh, you know, I just want to kind of like get my name out there, my brand out there. Like, I have no intentions of taking the job, da da da. And he said, no, I think you're just applying for it because you want that ego boost. And
Oh,
I
okay.
argued with him. And this was a funny moment of revelation for me. I was arguing with him, and I could just then take a step back, and I realized I was arguing because of my ego. And it's something that, you know, you will find that when
Got
you
ya.
start battling with people, you
Yes.
can see it in yourself. You're like, I'm not arguing here because of any reason than I want to be right and I want the other person to be wrong,
Right.
because my ego will be fine.
Yep.
And before I finished my argument, I stopped and I said to my dad, I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I was totally doing this because of ego. I want people to think, oh my gosh, he's the leader again.
Yeah.
And he went, well, there you go. And so, you know, I was able to learn that lesson that I basically took the wrong path of many years before. So I think the lesson there for anyone is don't take the easy path. I
Right.
know it'll be really hard. There'll be a lot of different things at play that will make you feel like the easy path is a good option, but just take some time to reflect, because it might take you down a road that's not the right road.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's just important. Even, yeah, once you've even made that decision to stop settling, that your ego is never going to shut up completely, and it's still going to be there, and it's still going to be trying to get you to take the safe route no matter what. I mean, I still have, so I quit my CPA job over a year, like a year and a half ago, say. And I was just thinking that the other day, because I do still do some accounting work, and I'm like, maybe I should just start doing some more accounting work and, you know, just allocate more time to that. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. But it felt safe, and there's, like you say, there's good money in it, and there's just going to be days like that where when
Yes.
you're trying to carve a new path, you're going to have rough days on that path, and you're going to want to settle back into your old ways. So
Yes.
just share the message to everybody that everybody goes through that. And
And
that's
I
just a
think you
normal
need to
part of
just
the journey.
and I think Amanda touched on it last week, you need to have a really good support crew around you,
Sure.
because, you know, you get to a point where you start to feel like, I know all the answers now, it's fine, but you don't. There's always still a chance that you don't know the right answers and you're making decisions through your ego. And that's why it was great to be talking to my dad, because I was completely unaware of the fact that that decision was an ego-based decision. That was
Right.
plain and simple. But when he called me out on it, I was able to sit there and reflect, and it was a fantastic revelation. Like, I think those moments of clarity are worth more than money, because you just sit there for a moment with yourself and go, "Oh my God, that's completely right. That's something I can now hold on to for the rest of my life and make sure I don't do that again."
Right.
So I think make sure you've got those people there that will challenge you, and you won't like it because your ego won't like it,
Of course.
but you need it.
See, and you thought you don't have a devil's advocate, but there you go. Your dad is your devil's advocate.
I think he is. I think he's
It sure sounds like it to me. So
yes, yeah, he is. He is.
so was there something, I'm just trying to imagine and trying to relate this to people who are trying to make the decision of whether they're going to stop settling or not. And I wonder if you could kind of explain what the days were like leading up to that decision, like how you would feel while you were at work, how you would feel at the end of the day, how you would feel when you're anticipating him to go back to work the next day. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. It was a sense of dread. I woke up in the morning and the first thought that popped into my head was, "Oh my God, I don't want to go back there today." And it was just this anxiety, I guess, of you know, I knew my workplace wasn't a supportive one. I knew that I'd have to do a lot of things that I didn't enjoy.
Yep.
That I was trying to justify. I was trying to find enjoyment in something that I just didn't enjoy. And basically, my days were, you know, I would constantly be looking for moments of escape. So I loved to run out the back and have a smoke. I
Okay.
smoked 20 to 25 cigarettes a day then. I would be
Oh my gosh.
walking out, you know, the moments that I get most frustrated about, and the branch that I had only had one exit, and
Yep.
that's where the customers came in, is that when I'd want to go out for a cigarette and there was a big queue of customers out there, so I'd have to basically deal with that before I went out for a cigarette.
Sure.
But it was just this feeling of escape. Like, I thought, all right, I just need to go outside and have a cigarette, and then everything will be better. And then that
Isn't
would
that
just,
crazy when you look back on it though?
yeah, and it would happen a lot. It would happen all the time. I'd finish work, I would feel unfulfilled. I'd feel like I had 150 things on my to-do list. I was waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and tell me, "All right, mate, like, too much work's built up now. Enough is enough. You're out."
So
So
even
I
though
would,
you were getting all these accolades in your team meetings and things, you still always had this feeling like you weren't doing enough and that someone was going to call you out.
well, initially, a lot of the accolades were in my previous management role.
Okay.
This was my most recent one, I suppose, which was quite a big change from
Okay.
the previous kind of role I was in. I was still getting accolades in the role I was doing. Like, I got called out a few times. My manager at the time seemed pretty happy with my performance, but yeah, I still felt that way, because for me, I felt like I had to do all of the things they expected of me, which I really find, you know, and I imagine this is true of a lot of leadership roles. There were too many expectations, too many things that I had to deliver on
Right.
that I just didn't have enough time for. And quite often the organization would look at you and say, you know, in response to you saying, "I don't have enough time," they'd say, "Well, I just don't think you're using your time wisely enough. You need to get..."
Yeah. Right.
And, you know, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So you just stop having that discussion, because,
Yep.
you know, the organization's got an answer for it. And yeah, I basically would leave work feeling unfulfilled, have a few cigarettes, think about going to the bottle shop to get some booze, probably get some booze, go sit at home on the couch, have some drinks while on my laptop doing work. And it was
Isn't
the
that
most
crazy?
miserable time of my life. And, you know, it was just basically waking up eventually going, you know, what am I doing?
Right.
Like, it literally, you know, to continue that life is to just lie to yourself and to say that, you know, it's all okay when it's not. You know, it's not okay.
Hmm.
And whereas now, you know, I wake up and the first thing I do is, you know, I try and think about what I'm grateful for. I'll think, okay, what happened yesterday? I'll just really try and be present and enjoy the moment and get
Yep.
up and eat a good breakfast, something I didn't do when I was a branch manager,
Sure.
or, you know, just really doing things that I want to do that are healthy for me. And that's the life I live now. And I don't want to compromise on that. So even as I embark on this new journey as a PhD student, I don't want to compromise on what I need to do, you know, self-care. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think that will hopefully play well in my next steps because it'll set me up for success. So
Yeah, 100%. Yep. And is there, before we kind of wrap things up here, I'm also wondering, is there someone, like a teaching that you ran across, or a mentor that you ran across, or some outside force that you ran across that helped you make that decision to leave the banking world? I mean, obviously you're miserable, but it's easy to stay in that spot still because it's safe and it's what you know. So there had to be something that pushed you out of that spot.
I think the first one would have been I got really sick. So I
Oh,
got
okay.
glandular fever and I was like, yeah, really, really crook for a fair while. Like, and I didn't really know why. I've never I'm probably quite lucky really and blessed to have not have been as sick as that, you know, more sick than this. But having glandular fever just smashed me for weeks. I just
Okay.
felt drained and exhausted. I couldn't eat. Um, and you know, that was the first wake up call. I thought I'm running way too fast
Right.
here. Like I'm burning myself out. But it was also the fact that I was spending so much time on this personal growth, you know, and I was finding a lot of success there. I was like, yeah, I'm moving forward in my own self development, but it
Right.
was all being sabotaged by my professional life. You know, all the lessons that I was learning, I couldn't put into play in an unsupportive workplace.
Yep.
So, and it was, you know, years later that I listened to A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about this as aligning your professional kind of career, I suppose, with, you know, what you know you need to do, like what your life's purpose is. So
Hmm.
I feel like I'm getting closer now to kind of combining the two, but that's something I think people need to be mindful of, because sometimes we say, you know, I work to live, you know,
Sure.
and that, like, I'm just, you know, I don't care what my job is. It might be really unsatisfying, but it's fine. It gives me the money I need to live. But then just think about, are you really living? Because the life you're probably living is probably a pretty miserable one. You know, I know mine was, like, drinking and smoking and being constantly tired.
Yep.
Um, that was my live, you know, I suppose. But, you know, you just need to reflect on that. Your work should be something that's satisfying and connects with you, and
Hmm.
it should be aligned to what you find as your purpose.
Absolutely. And that seems like a good place to end if you're ready to end, or did you have any other words of
No,
wisdom you
no,
want to share
I
before
think
we
that's it. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much.
it just seemed like that was like the perfect way to end it. So
Yeah, I'm happy with that ending.
so before we shut off the recording here though, we are going to go through some non-optional questions. So we've added this as part of the show where we're going to, if it's just the two of us, we'll ask each other, or we're going to ask our guests what we're calling non-optional questions that they can't get off the camera until they answer. So here we go. And just to kind of have some fun with it. So my first question, of course, has to do with core values because I'm a core value advocate all the way. So what is your core value and why?
I think my core value is accountability. I think it's, you know, just absolutely important to look inside yourself and realize when you need to own your own stuff. You need to own when you make mistakes, and you need to face up to them.
Yep.
And I think other people need to be accountable as well. I think too often what can happen is we basically pass the buck to others, and we try and blame others for things. But
Sure.
I think when you take accountability and say, no, that was my mistake, I need to own that, you learn a lot more than if you'd have passed the buck. And if you're passing the buck, it's your ego. The ego doesn't want you to.
And there we come back to ego again.
Yeah, we're always coming back to ego.
I know.
It's going to be good for next week, a good segue. But yeah,
Right.
I think accountability is really important to me.
Awesome. So the next question is also a selfish question because I love music. Music's a huge part of my life. So of course I want to know from you, what is your favorite type of music, your favorite musician or whatever?
I absolutely love music, to be honest. I feel like I need to reconnect with music because for a time I basically would buy 10 CDs a week,
Yeah.
back when CDs were cool. Now we're on Spotify, but I just loved learning new bands. I think probably my favorite music is progressive rock.
Okay.
I absolutely love Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson. I think he's just a beautiful virtuoso of music. The man is just charming as everything, and just so talented. He can play any instrument.
That's awesome.
And he's just interesting,
He's not the guy in Porcupine Tree, is he?
Yeah, Steven Wilson's the lead singer of Porcupine Tree.
Because he's also in Idlewild. And Idlewild? That's him too, isn't it?
He's got some other bands.
I think so. Did I just show you up on your own favorite guy?
I don't think I've heard of that, man. What was you probably have. I thought I knew all of them, actually.
I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure I just knew that he was in more than one band, so I thought, but no.
He's got heaps. Yeah, he's got heaps, because Porcupine Tree's disbanded now,
Sure.
and he's just doing his own stuff, but he had about 4 or 5 other side projects that he's doing.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to find out as soon as we get done.
We're going to have to look into it. We'll tell you guys next week.
But no, I'm glad to hear that, because I actually know that group, and I actually concur that is a good group, because if we didn't have the same musical taste, I don't know, we might have to end this right now. So
yeah. If I said I liked country music or something, I feel like that'd be something you're not into.
That'd be a hard one. To swallow. Yes.
But I love music. I think music is amazing. There's 100 million bands that I could name, but I think the one that stuck the most would be Porcupine Tree. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to listen to them now again. But anyways, and the third question I'm asking, because I noticed in a lot of your posts and things you refer to movies, so I feel like you kind of a movie guy. So what is your favorite movie and why?
That's a really tricky one, because I love so many movies.
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like I'm not gonna give the exact answer, the right one, but then I'm just gonna say probably I love Inception. Inception's just a really, probably because that's how my brain works. Just like it's so complicated and frustrating, but it's also really fulfilling. So
see, and I haven't seen that one yet either, and I wanted to, so I'm gonna have to take it.
And it's just a great cast of people. Tom Hardy's in it. This sounds like I'm doing a plug for Inception now, but Leonardo DiCaprio. Just a bunch of really awesome actors. Yeah.
Awesome. So something I'm gonna have to check out between now and our next recording.
Yes.
And
definitely.
with that, I will give you guys a taste of, or not a taste of, but a clue as to what we're going to be talking about next time. So the next time we meet, we are going to be talking about ego, and we kind of landed on that topic because it came up a couple times last week, and obviously it came up a lot in this video, or this audio. So I think that would be a good topic for us to hit next. So we will hit ego next week, and until then, cheers to not settling.
Thanks, guys.